Okay, well, we will go ahead and kick things off. I'm Tanya Manning, and I am a practice leader and chief actuary at Buck, a Gallagher company, but I'm also a longtime volunteer with the International Actuarial Association and someone with quite a passion for improving the diversity of our international profession. So it is my pleasure to present to you today's presentation, which will dive into just that, the diversity of our international profession, but looking at not just making it diverse, but why making it diverse really matters. And it matters to make sure that we continue to have a very strong profession. And to help us with this, I am only the moderator, so I'll kick things off and I'll be looking for questions. We do have the Q&A function to help you out. But I have two great presenters and they're going to go in the following order. Our first presenter is Kirsten Sassady. And Kirsten is a skilled actuary with extensive leadership experience and a proven track record of working in diverse actuarial roles across the profession. She has embarked on a mission to accelerate the movement toward a more inclusive and meaningful work life for everyone through diversity, leadership, and the value it brings from both a financial and a human perspective. So it is wonderful to have you here, Kirsten, who I happen to just meet through LinkedIn, the beauty of social media. And Kirsten was able to connect us with Frank Schiller, and Frank is an actuary and risk manager actively supporting the international profession in many different ways. Frank believes in an agile and empowered working environment. So establishing such a work environment amongst other dimensions like diversity, equity, and inclusion are cornerstones. And it is really fulfilling to see our colleagues strive and develop in such a positive environment. So with these two speakers who have a lot to say and a lot that they have learned, I'm excited to let them share that with you. And we'll start off with Kirsten. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tanya. So yeah, I think we can skip the first couple of slides, Carla, because I think Tanya already went through them. But yes, my name is Kirsten Sassady, and I'm a Danish actuary, but I've also been quite active in both the European and in the International Actuarial Association, where I was on the ASTIN board for a couple of years. So as Tanya said, I've now embarked on a mission. So even though I've been a leader in our profession for many years, it's been 20 years now, I've been a qualified actuary. I've now started a different path. And it's because I always felt like I had to change to fit in. And it's not because I felt like I was discriminated because of my age or my gender or anything else. I just felt like my perspective that was a little bit different to many other people's perspective was seen as a disturbance instead of a help. So it seemed like it was just easier to make quick decisions and to move on if everyone agrees. So I felt like for many years, I felt like I just didn't know how to play the game and that I had to change to fit in. But what I've realized now is I think actually they missed out on a lot of good perspectives. And also, I think many of you have tried to explain your viewpoint to somebody who doesn't agree or doesn't understand. And once you do that, you already gain a different perspective. So I actually think it's my mission is to empower all of us to embrace the differences and make them valuable. So there are lots of talk at the moment about what actuaries should be in the future. And I think there are many opinions on what kind of risks and opportunities we see going forward. But I think everyone can agree that changes are coming fast and learning to adapt is a key skill for all of us. So I think the future actuary has to be prepared for continuously learning and adapt. And I think the same goes for our profession. So we have to focus on how to grow our skill set and our mindset to fit in as the world evolves. You take the next one, Carla. Yeah. So this is a Chinese proverb that really resonates with me because I think it's true. I think there are many different types of people, and some people, once change comes along, they will try to avoid it. But as change is coming really quickly, we also need to work together and maybe open each other's eyes to how we can adapt instead of just trying to avoid the change. And I think if we embrace diversity in the sense that we're talking about it today, so it's not about gender or ethnicity or anything like that. It's diversity, a much broader perspective. And I think if we embrace that as a profession, I think we're much better prepared to face the future. So if you have a truly inclusive organization, you can avoid the blind spots and see things from many different angles. So I've added a very mathematical drawing here, but so you see if everyone just talks about what they can agree on and what everyone thinks is the traditional way of being an actuary and what we've learned and passed down generation to generation, we won't see the whole picture. Instead, we should focus on that everyone is an individual, and also maybe even broaden our perspective by letting other people in to our work and not just limiting it to traditional actuarial skill sets. Because it's actually the differences that make a difference. So once it doesn't if you include people, you get differences, of course, but it will also change your own mindset. Once you have to see things from another person's view, you gain a new perspective yourself, and you will be able also to see more than you saw before. And that's why when I talk about diversity, I really try to avoid talking about gender or age or ethnicity, because for me it's much broader, and I think it's a global thing that there many countries and companies have worked with diversity initiatives, but it's often very one-sided focus on these minority groups, and once you label them and target the group, now we have to help the women, or we have to include more of different ethnicities. You also introduce a cultural bias saying that the people you want to include are actually the different ones, as opposed to the rest of us who are the normal ones. So you really have to be careful with how you present these initiatives. And as soon as people feel like they are different, it's the human nature to fit in. And that's what I've experienced in my working life so far, is that I really try to fit in and change myself, because I thought, if everyone is this way, maybe I must be the wrong one. So, but in that way, if you add diversity just by number, so to say, it's just something you can count. But if people feel like they have to change or limit themselves when you hire them into your business, it's not really diversity at all. You don't put diversity into play. It's just statistics, basically. But if you want different viewpoints, you have to target it a different way. So that's just summed up. So the challenge, can you go one back, Carla? Yeah, the challenge of diversity is not to create, just to have it, is to create conditions where you actually can use the diversity to enhance performance. So instead of having initiatives targeted at minority groups and talking about us, the normal ones, the people already in the company, having to include the others, you have to make your diversity initiatives about everyone. So it's not just about those who are different to us. It's actually initiatives for everyone. So we need to expand everyone's view to differences and learn how to see them in a broader perspective. So when you meet somebody, you shouldn't meet them saying, I'm a representative of this majority group at the company, and I'm looking at this person representing the other group. You should instead try to just meet them person to person and say, this is a person that have similarities to me and differences. So maybe we're both parents, maybe we both, I don't know, have the same university background, maybe we both have a dog, I don't know. It's just meeting each other with everyone has something in common. So you see that you're just talking person to person, and then after that you can talk about the differences, but you have to see the whole person and move away from this habit of putting them into boxes and stereotypes that creates myths around how they are because they come from a specific group. So if you have a diversity initiative, I think it's most helpful if you do it with such a wide range of relevant differences in mind that no single difference works as a label. So it's not an initiative for women. It's not an initiative for including other ethnical backgrounds. It's just for everyone to be able to be themselves at work. So it's about valuing diversity and about accepting that there is no true way of looking at things, but there are many different and equally correct perspectives on a problem. And that's kind of the core of the thing I'm working at with at the moment. It's called diversity management. It's actually teaching. Tanya, do you have a question?
Yes, there's a question. When you are thinking about diversity, do you need to still be conscious of all the different factors that might lead into different perspectives? How do you balance that so it isn't ignoring the different factors of diversity, right? Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, it's true, because there's also been a period of time where everybody thought that the way of targeting this was just to pretend that nobody is different, that we are all the same, and that you're blind to differences. And that's not really helpful at all. I mean, if you want to create true equity, it's about treating people different so they have the same opportunities. So you actually have to really get to know the person, but not from a perspective of which minority group they belong to, but just know the person in front of you.
Here's another more intriguing question. He presented, when does the boundary of seeking diversity stop and morality kick in? For example, would you bring a very, very radical leader of a country who's very generally seen as controversial? Would you still bring them to the table for inclusiveness? Like, when do you say, yes, I want a variety of views, but at some point you're like, not that variety of views?
I think you have to, before you start out, you have to agree on some ground rules. Because I think you can, in the moral and ethic perspective, there are some ground rules that everyone has to agree on. And I think there is, of course, a limit also for how you shouldn't include everyone if they don't. I think it's very important that everyone has the common best in interest of the group. But it is very difficult. And once you introduce more diversity, it will also give you more friction, and it will be harder to make decisions. And sometimes you will have to just say, this is whether, everyone who has kids will know this, that if you welcome them into discussions, it's endless. So at one point, somebody has to make a decision, but I still think the person making the decision has a much broader
It's not,
ground for deciding once you've seen everyone's perspectives.
so it is not without risk, and it's not
Not
without,
at all. No, and that's
without,
what
thank you.
that's why that's my mission actually, because there are many diversity initiatives in the world at the moment. But I'm just afraid that it's gonna backfire, because if you just introduce diversity for compliance reasons or because there's a push for it, but you don't actually want to value it and actually bring it into play, it's just going to make a chaos, and people will then in the end say, see, we tried it, it doesn't work. So that's why you need diversity leadership, as we call it. It's to make this connection between diversity and actually creating value using it. So it should be a strategic approach to staying ahead in like a complex world. So diversity managed is the means that you want to teach your managers and also talk about with every employee in the company, so everyone has the same language about this. And but what the aim is actually the inclusive organizations, where people don't feel like they have to adapt, but where they actually feel like if they bring a different viewpoint, the company values this. Yeah, so it's actually creating an environment where the individual person is actually being managed by their leader to reach their full potential. But as you said, Tanya, and as we discussed before, it's a constant balance between adaptation and change, because everything can't be change, and it can't be everything can't be a democracy in a company. Somebody has to make a decision in the end. But it's if we go back to see how it all started with creating these workplaces that we have now, it was all about the standardization of the work processes and having a uniformity of the human contribution. And everything that was different was seen as a disturbance. So now we have to kind of reverse that mindset and see that that it's actually good if people approach work differently, and we have to reward people also for being different. So that's what I always felt like working, was that I would have more praise if I just acted like the rest of them. And people even told me, you know, you'll have a great career path if you could just be more like this guy. But I have a very strong inner compass for what I think is right or wrong. So I was never able to just do what they said and play the game. And I think it's much more valuable if you manage to let people actually bring in everything they've got. So you get this inclusive organization where people feel like they are actually rewarded for being an individual employee. So I like this quote, of course: if two men in a business always agree, one of them is unnecessary. And I think that's the whole point. You have to discuss things to make the best decisions. But it also it's not easy. It's not a quick fix, because you have to change the mindset, but you also sometimes have to change how the way you build your company. So you have to organize your organization even, so it creates a better platform for the inclusive environment, instead of going for homogeneity. And you have to make this part of your core values, and it should be, of course, leaderships should be behind this and truly believe in this before you can actually change the culture. Because if you still feel like you would have more points acting like the rest, it's not going to be profitable in the long run. But if you do it right, you don't only get from the employees what you've hired them to do, but you actually get everything else they have to offer. And even actuaries have other sides than the mathematical skills. Um, so I think you should just let everyone offer what they can, and you create more value. I talked with Frank about putting a 2 + 2 is more than 4, but then we agreed that some actuaries may not like that. But in this context, I would say that you can actually end up getting more than you've put in the equation.
We have
So what's your question, Tanya?
Yeah, first of all, I believe the chat, Carla, you tried to fix, but I think the chat's only for the panelists, and my apologies. I know some of you like to interact in that way, but do feel free to post questions, and thank you for those who have done so far. Another question that we have is, you keep talking about diversity and different perspectives, but how do you figure out if you have that? Are there different ways of looking at people's personalities versus just looking at their obvious traits of diversity? Are there other ways to figure that out?
I think once two people are in the same room, you have diversity. So I think you just have to really be interested in the other person, just for everything they are, and everyone is different. And once you
What
put
about like the tests that you take, Kristen? Like you can take personality tests and stuff.
you can do that. Some people, I think some companies do that also, but sometimes it's more for like recruiting purposes. But you can also have some tests that are for personal development, and also for seeing strengths and weaknesses within your team, and being better at empowering each other, and see why you have a different perspective on things. But it's very important, again, not to use it to box people in and say, so, oh, you're green, so that's why you react that way. But to see people as a full palette of differences. And I'm actually studying at the moment the Jung personality types, and I think they have a very good way of describing it, saying you get like a personality code, but it doesn't mean that you're similar to anyone else with that same letter combination, but it means that you live in like the same postcode. You have similarities, but everyone is unique. And I know from studying personality types that some people also need to see the business case first to make a logical decision. Not everyone just want to do this because it feels right, but I think everyone can agree, if you have underutilized people in your company, it makes no sense. It makes more sense to get everything out of everyone, and using your employees to the max. And there are lots of personal side effects of embracing this in a constructive way. Of course, you would get a better image. It would be easier for you to attract and also to retain qualified employees. And even the younger generations, you see them pushing for more of this, being seen as an individual. So this will speak to the younger generations too. But in general, you get a much better mental working environment if people feel like you see them as the individual they are. They feel much better and safer at work, and it will reduce your sickness absence. It will reduce stress levels, and in general, you just get more tolerant and confident employees. And it will also make it easier for you if you have to introduce change. I think many people have tried different change programs in their companies, and it's always difficult. But if people feel safe and seen, they also have an increased willingness to embrace change in a constructive way. So then we end up with diversity not being a problem that we have to solve or some compliance issue that we have to take care of, but instead it's a professional and competitive strength. And it's of course hard to know. It's a big project, and it's not a quick fix, as I said. But you can start with just experimenting with it. For instance, having employees work at the edge of their well-known competences, so they don't just always work with the thing you hired them for and that you know they're good at, but introduce them into different kind of projects that are maybe not the core skill of their competences, but maybe they can evolve that way and have a very helpful perspective. And also move away from organizing the companies based on like work functions and work processes and have very defined way of succeeding within these boxes, but instead focus on what your individual employees bring to the table and put the skills into play. And do you have one question, Tanya?
I was going to say people will challenge you and say, what do you mean put people in jobs we didn't hire them for? Isn't
Yeah.
that inefficient?
Yeah.
And all of the training that's involved, and you're saying that the return is greater than the investment required to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. I mean, in my previous job, I worked at a pension fund and I was head of the actuarial department. And when I arrived, one of the biggest issues the department had was that everyone thought they were always against everything. They were just, you know, the annoying people that would always come with like some remark that would ruin everyone's great ideas for the future. But people never really asked them until they had like gone through the whole strategic project and they were like, oh, we have to ask the actuaries as well. And then they would say, you know, oh, but you know, we have promised some customers back in the 80s, we promised them this and this and this, so it's not going to work. But so what I did was introduce my employees into these working groups early on, and everyone was a bit nervous about it. Even my employees, they were like, but I don't know anything about developing like a internet site for customers to connect with us, or but I was like, just listen in and maybe you will have some. And it turned out to be very valuable for everyone. I mean, people didn't feel like anymore that they were just annoying people that would stop every great project for the future. And the actuaries also got more flexible because they understood suddenly why they would want to change things, because it's easier to, I don't know, put on a website for the customers. It's easier to not have so many different systems, or you know, it just created a much better environment and a much more positive we worked together in a different way, and I think everyone gained from that. So it wasn't a big thing. They would just attend some of these initial meetings instead of being asked later on. And I think it was very helpful also on a personal level. The actuaries also got lots more friends around the company. Instead of always eating lunch alone together, they had new friends from different departments. So, and my last comment is also to tease you a little bit, because I think actuaries always say that we really like working with complexity, but I think we should also maybe challenge ourselves to work with the complexity when it comes to the humans we interact with as well. Great.
All right, Frank, I think we're ready for you. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me today, for inviting me to present in this webinar. Well, I'm really coming from a similar direction as Kirsten, and well, thank you for setting the stage, Kirsten, with these insights you gave us. What I want to do now is perhaps even give you some more details on how it can really be implemented in an environment, and actually also where I'm coming from, why it's so important for me as an actuary, as a person. When you look at the current environments we're working in, typically we are in these VUCA environments. You know that. So it's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous. And typically the answer, that's what I learned in the last 5-6 years, was when you really want to tackle these complex environments, it's a very good idea to think of an agile approach, because you have not to decide right now what you will do the next 5 years, but you can tackle it step by step, and you just learn over the time. And when you look at what the IT guys described, what is an agile working environment, it is very important that you go for, and that's just quoting the manifesto for agile software development, and we kind of translate that for our own purpose into a more general like manifesto. When you look at it, it's about working solutions and not working programs or working code. So it's actually 4 main topics, and we will see that diversity is a very crucial point in that. So it's about individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So it's really the persons and how these persons cooperate, instead of defining everything and really having pre-described tools. Secondly, it's about working solutions. So it's about the results. So it's not about who does it, but what's the result? Is it worth it? Have we succeeded? Instead, comprehensive documentation, again, following rules, following guidelines is important, but it's not the core. It's about customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Again, customers will give you valuable insights, and they will just add to the diversity you have in your working environment. And it's about responding to change over following a plan. Or again, it's really about being open to change. And I think that's all 4 topics are really part of having a general attitude of diverse, equal, and being inclusive. And well, it's a very specific idea where we started like 5-6 years ago in our business unit. Munich Re, I'm working for Munich Re, has that now already for 3 years now in their leadership values. You see that on the next page. Leadership values, actually, there are 5 cornerstones, and one of those is what we call "We Lead the We." And to this "We Lead the We" actually comes 3 main topics, and just have a look at the third. There very explicitly Munich Re states as a very important topic: we create an inclusive environment where different thoughts, generations, cultures, and experiences are valued and encouraged. And it's all about providing collaboration that we can grow as a team. So it's really about being able to grow, to expand, to learn from each other. And that's a very, very crucial element of diversity. And I know it's not just Munich Re doing that. All major companies I know they have similar leadership values in their companies, and they might be different in tiny aspects, but many of them who prosper really have same thoughts and same values. And I think that's a very crucial learning also for me, that it's really about bringing this forward. Tonya.
Yes, we have a question, and either you or Kristen can answer. But the question is, how do diversity challenges change now that we're working in more of a hybrid and online world? So, this whole concept of team has a different tension and a different way of happening. These less physical interactions, how do you each think about this?
Actually, what I would say is that it will even support the idea, because you have the possibility to even include much more people. So if they have problems coming to work for all different reasons, be it because they work from very far away, if they have family to care, like old aged parents, children, it becomes less and less important who does it. You have much more freedom, and so it's a support. But what you need to know is also, or what you need to encourage, is that people still meet and that they have also personal contact. So it's both a challenge because you still need to you still need to foster for a personal exchange, but actually it's an opportunity to really include even more people.
Yeah, and I think I agree. I totally agree. And I think it's also important that people are able to express their individual needs, so you can fully utilize the hybrid working environment. So if you create an environment where people can be honest and just say, my parents are really ill at the moment, I have to take care of them, or something. You just, if you encourage to see all of the person, also the personal side, you can much better adapt. But you also need the environment where people feel safe to be honest about what they need.
The point what I've learned is really you need someone to really go for it. So you cannot really develop that bottom up, but you have to have sponsors, or what how we now call it in the meantime, you need allies to implement that. And it's not, as I fully support what Kirsten said, it's not just about implementing rules and be compliant, but it's really about meaning to do it, believing in the purpose of implementing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the question is, well, how can we do that? Me, for instance, as a while old, well, perhaps rather old, personally, I don't think I'm old yet, but well, people might think differently. And successful person, I can have an impact. That's the point, because I'm already leading a team of 60 people. So I have something to say in the organization, and I have responsibility. And what I want to do now is share with you thoughts we had as a management team, but also I personally have, fully support that, just to make you aware of possibilities, but then also obstacles. Perhaps come to the next one. The win-win of fostering such an environment, I think Kirsten already tackled a lot on it. Well, the first topic is about relationship and networks. It's simply satisfying. Well, for me as a person, to be able to reach out to all different people and personalities, but also to all different expertise we have. So it's, for instance, we have medical doctors working in our team. We have underwriters, we have claims managers, we have client managers, we have life, non-life, we have actuaries, IT managers, and they all bring in different expertise and perspectives. And well, that's the skills, but then it's also personality. So people have different understanding how to run processes, projects, processes. They have different beliefs of how to cooperate, and there's no right or wrong. That's, I think, especially for cooperation, that's a given. And you can only learn. And with such a very diverse network and with diverse relationships, you just also increase stability and actually also resilience against problems and issues you might recognize over time and just realize. The second thing is what Kirsten already discussed in detail. It's about decision making. The more different perspectives you have, the more robust the decision will be. Well, the discussion might be longer, but then in the end, the result might be much better. Again, also innovation might strive from different perspectives, different experiences, and also you might be able to tap into the needs of a much broader group of people just by also representing those different people in your organization. Then what we already learned, especially with young employees, they really like that. So we in the meantime, during our recruitment process, we just invite also candidates to really meet the team and see how we work, and really also hear from them that we already work in such a diverse environment. And typically that's something which brings purpose to the new candidates, and that also often we win over other competitors who might not yet have this implemented so successfully. Well, and in the end, that's also what they hear. If you have new candidates, they just realize that the whole working environment is really satisfying for everybody. So that's what we already see. That's what we already experience. But then you also have hurdles, and that's all of them. So it's 4 of them. I will just sum up briefly. That's something you have to be aware of. You will hear that, and it's also in our company you will hear that. And actually, the first and what I find the most difficult to work with is a general attitude or a prejudice that, well, some group of people do not really deserve to be treated equal for different reasons. So they have different education, they have a different cultural background, they don't fit. And it's actually the contrary. Also, we need them because it's an additional perspective. Then, well, actually, we have done a lot already. People say that quite often. DEI is already implemented. So what should I support that any longer? You will hear that. And well, it's always we need to really implement it all the time. You have to be aware. So that's something where I believe it's very important, not just to think, okay, tick the box, we have done it. Tonya, you have a question.
Yes, the question is, we've talked about a lot of different types of diversity and minorities and that type of thing, but this being the International Actuarial Association is naturally going to make us ask, what about the diversities that are just different nationalities? So maybe not a minority group, but just a different group that isn't perhaps North American or, wherever you happen to be in the world, and people not from your part of the world you must interact with. How is that coming into play here?
I think that's very, very important. And that's actually one of the points in the first group, people coming from different cultural backgrounds. I strongly believe that, for instance, I'm responsible for all reinsurance, life and health reinsurance in Europe. But we, on purpose, hired people from North America, from Asia, from Africa, because they have a different view on things, and they have a different perspective, and they really help us getting a broader view. In the end, also with those additional input and this broader perspective, we are now able to really produce more stable, robust solutions. That's what I've learned. So I fully support that. So it's not just about, well, when I speak of culture, it's all different aspects of culture, and it's not just every actuary is the same. So from different cultures, they really can add to teams, and I strongly believe that. Perhaps at the next page, 2 more of the hurdles we have to be aware of, that we can tackle them. That quite often people say, well, it's not my job. So I have HR department doing it. It's the managers doing it. No, it's everybody's job. So everybody has to be part of this whole topic, because only as a team we can make it change. Because it's if there's just 1 or 2 persons in a group that don't act in this way, people will realize that, and they won't feel at home and not well perceived. Tonya?
Okay. I have a question, because a lot of times this diversity, equity, inclusion is seen as what the leader should be taking care of. That's the leader's role, the manager. They should set up the team and they organize the meetings. Are you saying it's more than just those who are sending out the agendas and leading us through? If so, exactly how would I do that if I'm just part of a meeting?
Yeah, but that's something I will tell you later in one of the next slides. But in the end, it's as I say, I think it's a general misunderstanding. If they are called leadership values, then it's just the leadership's role. No, it isn't, because the leadership has to remember everybody. So that's their role. But in the end, it has to be the full team, the full organization, and everybody has to implement it. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. So it has to become, again, culture. It has to be part of the whole organization. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. It cannot be just the leaders. And perhaps the last topic, and you might hear that quite often. Well, we will. It's not our first priority. We have so many other different projects. We have to run business. We have to, I don't know, how certain IT projects are much more important. Why should we invest time in that? And if you say that, you won't never have time for implementing DEI, because you will always have some other topics that might be of higher priority. So you have to start now and not tomorrow. That's very important. So what can you do now? What are the topics? And I would invite you to think of 4 different aspects, what everybody can do. It's not just the leaders. Perhaps the topic on the top left, leverage on your privileges, that might be especially leaders, but all the others, that's something for everybody. Let's start with the left one, inform ourselves and listen. I think it's very important, as also Kirsten said, that we are open and really hear and listen to the needs of others and understand them. Why do they have these needs? That we really also understand what kind of support do they really need, not to assume what kind of support we could give them, but really ask them. So what do they really need? And then also have an open door policy, be open to feedback. By the way, that's also a very crucial part of an agile environment. Be open and provide and receive feedback, because only that's the way how we can really improve ourselves. Then second point, perhaps that's very special for leadership, because they have more privileges, but it's also project leaders, it's team leaders who might have more privileges than others. It's important that, for instance, when you recognize you're in a group, for instance, when I recognize I'm in a group where only other males are, not a single female is part of this panel, well, I will speak up and tell people, well, we shouldn't have it like that. I'd like to invite someone like female, people from other cultural backgrounds, different regions. I want to implement that. I want to have that in this panel, because I believe that this more diverse group can have better decisions, for instance. It's important that during such a meeting, well, me as a leader, typically I chair meetings. I should make sure that I don't speak all the time. I should invite others to speak up and to share their knowledge. And then really, I need to divide that evenly between all participants. That's my privilege. I can do that. I can moderate. But it's also to really promote others, to invite others into these networks. Build bridges. Again, everybody can do that. So you can, well, speak to people, even if they are not in the network or in a panel. You can talk to people and invite them to join as a guest, to present there, or at least to ask them for their needs and bring that into the decision panels. And then last but not least, to speak up, and that everybody can do. If you just realize something's not right, just say it and speak to your manager, speak up in the meeting. If they're inappropriate jokes, just call out that, well, that's not appropriate, it's not fitting. So it's just the tiny bits that will change, will make a change for the whole organization, and actually also for the culture. Perhaps 2 examples to make it more tangible. Just half a year ago, we started a DEI project, and the idea was really to better understand and identify and drive specific initiatives that are helpful for the individuals that might not have been represented in a fair way in our organization. How do we organize that? We have regular steering committee meetings in a full group, but then typically we have like sub-projects and that's important, in mixed teams between leadership and normal employees, but then also trying to mix the team also with all different aspects. Just some examples. For instance, we have one deaf colleague, and you can imagine we switched between German, English, sometimes French, a bit Spanish, and for each language, that's something I had to learn, is the sign language is different. So when he needs a sign language interpreter, actually he needs someone who speaks German sign language, or kind of can use German sign language and understands all the other languages like English, Spanish, French. So you have to prepare in advance, give time that the colleague can find the right colleague, the right interpreter, or provide other means. For instance, we can use in the meantime Zoom. So sometimes also virtual meetings are even better for him than just having meetings in person, because then it's easier for him to really follow the conversations, because then it's translated automatically and you get the subtitles. A second very natural topic is open feedback and safe space. How can we provide that? So we've done a lot already in that space or in that field, but still there's a lot to do, and you will never be finished. And we just realized from some groups who still feel not safe in speaking up, and so just having this project and providing space for them to speak up, we just open doors that weren't open before. So that's very important, to really just take the first steps and really provide the safe space. And last topic, it's not the last topic of the initiatives or the projects, but it's just what I find very important. On the other hand, it's not just providing safe space to some groups who don't feel safe yet, but also by that you can understand your own biases and to understand, am I afraid of something? Do I have misjudged certain situations, certain persons, certain groups? And really to have a conversation and to speak about it, and especially with exactly those groups of persons. And that's, for the last 6 months, that was very valuable to really get things going and broaden the understanding and the openness. In the end, how did we start it? So it was the leadership team. So it was a must for everybody in the leadership team. And we opened it up for everybody who was interested in participating. And so it was spread of mouth that people more and more become interested, because they just see that it is safe. You can participate. It's not a disadvantage for you to participate. It's supporting you. Tonya?
I think that is maybe one of the trickier things that I've been challenged with, is to be aware of my own bias and to have someone help me discover that. And I just wonder, do you have any examples of how you can make people feel safe? Is it only someone has to be brave enough to be the first person and you treat it fairly? Or is there other things you can do to make people more comfortable and saying, well, Tanya, maybe you have a bias against this particular perspective, or how do you make people feel safe and to learn and do better?
Actually, what's very important, and again, that's the leadership role, you have to act as an example, and really you have to act as an ally. So that's the point where I think that's very crucial. You have to act as an example that people really see. Yes, I can speak up, and it's really not a disadvantage if I do that. And then typically what we started is in smaller groups. That was also the reason why we started on purpose in these smaller groups where people felt safer. And then out of these projects, we came back to the bigger leadership group, and then also open up. So for instance, we have what we call continuous conversations. That's part also from the leadership program or the leadership values. We have very often, we have bilateral meetings and we take our time and listen. It's not a tick the box exercise, but it's really about really personally getting in contact with everybody and really understanding the needs, but also the strengths of everybody, to be able to really foster the strengths of everybody and develop them into the right direction. And so that's the point why people also learned, and they really also felt it's okay and I can speak up. But it's really a change, and people have to see that, experience it, and you can do it 10 times right, and once you fail, and then it's already destroyed. You have to be very, very constant with providing this safe space.
I think this gets back to what Kristen was saying earlier too, is this type of diversity we're talking about is not without effort. And also, I think finesse, if you will. For example, the person who asks the opposing question or brings the opposing view, but at the end of the meeting, when everyone's ready to leave and move on to their next appointment, how do you handle those situations? I think there is, it takes a lot of work and a lot of intention, and a little finesse sometimes.
Yeah. So for instance, that's also part of our agile culture we have implemented. We are always going for consent decisions, so nobody votes against it at least. So it doesn't need that everybody supports it, but actually nobody has to really be against it completely. And we discussed that, how long it takes. And if it takes a day, we'll take a day. That's just it. So, but in the end, having invested that much in the decision process, really, the benefit we get is that for the next half year, we have clarity and everybody strongly believes in the results. So we have full unity about all. Typically, we do it in the leadership team. So everybody really strongly stands behind the decision. And that's a power that is worth investing for this perhaps lengthy discussion process. And I think that's something, again, it's a cultural topic. It's about values and what's important, what's not so important. And we rather invest more time at the beginning to get good results instead of having every second week to discuss again. So that's something we have decided, and we really speak up if it doesn't happen. And that's very important. Perhaps the last example, and then there might be some more questions. I didn't want to stop without an example on gender. So I have the privilege, I have to say, that my boss is female and also my board member is female, and they're not, in a sense, they have not adapted to a male's world, but they act as they are. So they still are individuals, and I like it a lot how they have already changed the environment in our whole unit and in the whole area I'm working. And the good thing is having that, you have role models available that can really also foster this exchange between female and really support female leadership in the team. Just one example, how you could do that once you have already started the first steps. And so it's very important that, again, you have the safe space, people can speak up. There's this exchange. Actually, I haven't participated, obviously, in those meetings because I'm not female, but I know from my boss that it's working quite well. And again, I support it. So, for instance, one of my team leaders, I really support her. And actually, I don't need to push her, but she does it for herself. But I think it's very important that she participates in these meetings, because she can support others who are not yet leaders, but then also get support from my boss or from the board member, how to make the next steps. And I think that's very, very valuable for the whole organization. So with that, I would conclude my sharing my ideas, and happy to answer further questions if you have.
Thank you. That was perfect timing. Kirsten, do you want to give a pitch for our spot in Brussels?
Yes. Yeah, actually, Tanya and I were accepted to talk at the JOCO conference in Brussels, because since ESG is one of the topics of the conference, we said that maybe actuaries want to model climate risk, but talking about the S and sustainable work environments is also important. And as we've talked about today, we think it's an important thing for our profession going forward to be more adaptable and more willing to see other perspectives as well.
Yes.
So we hope lots of people will join.
Yeah, thank you. We are exactly at 9 o'clock, Carla. Unless there's anything else logistically we need to handle, I think we can wrap it up. Thank you for those who had questions today, and I'm sure the panelists are can be found on LinkedIn or otherwise if you want to reach out to them. But just so much thanks to both of you. These were really important messages and information, and I couldn't be happier with what you shared. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Enjoy the
Thank
rest of
you.
the day.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.